Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars, welcome to another PlayStation review. Today's review is for Chernobylite, and many thank you to All In Games for providing me with this review code, but as you know guys, that will not affect my rating in any way. What do we get with Chernobylite? Well, this is a game that I've actually had my eye on for a number of weeks, and if I hadn't have got a review code, I would probably have bought it myself to review for the channel anyway. What we get here is a single player experience, and it's a blend of a few genres. It's like an exploration game, it's a survival game, it's a first person shooter game, it's a post apocalyptic game, and essentially you play a character called Igor or Igor, and you are exploring the Chernobyl site. Essentially you're trying to find your wife, to cut a long story short. Along the way, you team up with companions, you do a little bit of base building, and you go out on daily missions to try and find clues, to put the evidence together that will lead you to solve the mystery of the game and ultimately the location of your wife, etc. What are my thoughts on Chernobylite? Well, as I said, this is a game that I've been quite interested in playing. There's a lot about this game that interested me. Essentially the base building game. Now, anybody that knows me and my content knows that I'm a big fan of base building. Fallout 4 for me is the pinnacle of that in regards to single player games, the base building aspect of it. And the base building in this game, while it's not as deep and expansive as Fallout 4, obviously, actually works quite well, and it works in a very, very similar way to Fallout, as you can see here. This is the initial base that you get, and you've got to clear away all the debris, and then you've got to essentially find resources out on missions to be able to build up your base to everything that you will need. And there's a whole array of things you will need, from air filtration units to workbenches to a whole array of things, gardening things so you can grow herbs, furniture, because the thing is in this game as well, you have a number of companions in this game essentially. And the structure works. You will go out on a mission, but you can also send your companions out on missions, and they will come back with resources depending on how well equipped they go out into the mission. So at the base, you really do need to look after your companions. You need to make sure they have a place to sleep, their comfort level is high, they've got somewhere private that they can call their own. You also need to make sure they're well equipped, which will mean crafting new weapons, crafting ammo so that you can exchange equipment, ammo with your companions so that they're well stocked when they're going out on missions. And then you need to essentially go out on these missions, these daily missions, which you could argue do get repetitive. Some of these daily missions are crucial to the ongoing story. Some of them are just missions you can choose to go out and get resources. And the resources that you collect out of missions are fairly plentiful, if I'm being honest. And you do have like a scanner at your disposal that you can scan the environment, and it will tell you where certain bits of resources will be found, or whether it be like herbs or mechanical stuff or scrap or whatever. You can set your scanner to help you search for these items. Now, to be honest, I mean, the scanner is a nice thing to have, but for me, the resources were so plentiful in levels, it got to the point where I didn't really need that scanner too much. And depending on your play style, if you're going to go in there all guns blazing and take down the enemies on a level, they drop quite a lot of resources as well in regards to mechanical parts, electrical parts, weapons, ammo, so on and so forth. So you make your way through these levels, you complete the objectives, and on the map as well, at the compass above your head in the level, it will guide you to parts on this hub where there are question marks, where there might be something useful for you to find, maybe a clue, maybe some important equipment for you to pick up. The game is also, it throws the odd scare, yeah, I suppose. Now, you could never really describe this game as a horror game, because if it was, I probably wouldn't be that interested in it. I'm not a big fan of horror games. I'm not a big fan of scares in games. I like scary films, but I'm not overly keen on scares in games. And whereas, this game has its moments. It does give you the odd scare here and there, because there are some like dimensional type monsters in the game, and I don't want to spoil it for you in regards to the story and the type of monsters that you'll face. But I never really felt like I wasn't equipped to deal with them, and I never kind of felt like I was running and panicking for my life, sort of thing. Not too much anyway. The combat is, for me, definitely functional. I am not generally a veteran when it comes to first-person shooters. I don't play COD and games like that, so my advice would be is if you are a veteran of games like COD and Battlefield, you might find the shooting here to be quite primitive. Not really sure. For me, it worked absolutely fine. The weapons worked fine. There's a whole array of weapons for you to find. There's a whole array of upgrades you can give your weapons. There's other weapons you can craft as well. But they all felt pretty responsive to me. I never really had an issue with the shooting. You can go the stealthy approach as well, which I used quite often in the missions. If you don't want to confront the enemies on a map, you can kind of work your way around them. And that's definitely a viable option and one I used quite a lot. But I also, when I felt like I was equipped better to deal with the soldiers that you would get in levels, I would face them head on as well, generally speaking. Mainly because I knew they would probably have some decent supplies that would help me expand my base even more. So it's kind of a balancing act, this game. You've got to go into these levels to, move forward with the story, but also to get resources. You've got to keep upgrading your base and expanding your base, if you like, to ensure that you manage your companions' happiness and that you've got everything that you need at the base in regards to crafting, all the materials that you need. Putting generators in there to keep the power up, and it's a constant battle. As you put new equipment in the base, it needs more power, so therefore you need more generators. The sort of thing. I did quite like the mechanic in regards to the companions and keeping their happiness up. There's also a mechanic in the game where you have to kind of keep your psychological levels healthy, because they can drop as well depending on certain things in the game happening. So you've got to kind of craft resources and ointments and things like that to improve, like calming ointments to improve your psychological state and things like that. So it's kind of rinse and repeat. You go into the missions, you get what you need, you go to the mission tags, you do what you needed to do in the mission, you get your resources, you come back to the base, expand your base, rinse and repeat. The missions get repeatedly harder, depending on how successful the missions are and what kind of chaos you caused when you go into the missions. There is voice acting here on display, but it's not certainly the best voice acting I've heard in a game. Certainly not the worst either. It's functional, and the game itself looks quite nice, even though it's got a similar aesthetic in regards to how the game looks. All looks a bit, as you can see, you've got like this fog and this green and this mist, and all looks a bit worn and tired. But it looks fine. I didn't have a problem with any of the graphics at all. And to say, I mean, apparently there's going to be a patch on day one for people that buy this on day one. But I've been playing this game for 4 days now, and I've had no crashes and no issues with the game. And no bugs to speak of either. So it's in pretty good shape as is, and I've not experienced the day one patch yet. So overall, it really depends on what you want from this game. If this is what you expect it to be, what the things I've described, you're not going to be disappointed, but it is certainly not like a AAA quality game. But it's very playable, and some good mechanics in the game, and it delivers everything you expect from it. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found the review useful. And of course, I will be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.